In the early 2010s in Tbilisi, Georgia, a legend was born. No sponsors, no racetracks, just one man and his dark purple BMW M5 E34. Loved by many, hated by others, but never forgotten. This is the story of the rise and demise of Giorgi Tevadze, the street drifting king of Tbilisi. Giorgi Tevadze was born in 1987 in Tbilisi and spent his childhood in Russia. He first got behind the wheel at the age of 13 and later his driving style would make him world famous. The proper recognition came with a YouTube video released on the 19th of April of 2013. It shows two BMW M5s racing through traffic, and when I first saw it, it was the wildest video that I had seen until then. The streets were incredibly crowded and the cars went against traffic and then acted like everything was normal in plain sight of the police. This looks like the real-life version of the Tbilisi movie chase scene with the two Mercedes 500 EW 124s. This comparison doesn't just come from nowhere, because here we also have two German sports sedans, and the BMW M5 E34 is just gorgeous, especially in these two colors, the red and the dark purple. The video showing this material on the Need for Drive YouTube channel has a really high production value, and it's clear someone put a lot of effort into this. The video shifts a bit in tone and becomes a genuinely good documentary on the local illegal car drifting scene, with Giorgi Tevadze at the center. However, it introduces us so intensely to this new world and then leaves us with so many questions. Like, for example, who is Giorgi Tevadze? He seems to be the unofficial mayor of the local illegal street drifting scene. Basically the standout guy that the scene evolves around. And also, why does this scene exist in the first place? For that, we need to dive into Eastern European car culture, and there are also already a few hints on the Need for Drive channel. Georgian and Eastern European car culture is really strongly influenced by its history. From the obsession with German sedans, especially BMWs, being rooted in the availability on the used market coming over from Western Europe, which cycles through cars really quickly, and the insane change in experience what driving is, coming from old Soviet time cars that would handle poorly and lacked power to all of a sudden being able to buy a used BMW M5. These cars also quickly gained the status of status symbol in Georgia and Eastern Europe as having made it in the new system. The politically turbulent times also led to a higher acceptance of reckless driving as a form of rebellion. But a bit of reckless driving and being fascinated by BMWs doesn't create a scene like this. There's another pretty major factor at play here, which also is apparent when looking at the Need for Drive channel, and that is the culture around street racing of the 2000s to 2010s. For example, the channel is named Need for Drive, very similar to the Need for Speed video game, and they also borrowed the lettering of the franchise. I earlier already pointed out the similarity of the video that made Giorgi Tevadze blow up like that to the Tbilisi movies. Similarly to how the early Fast and Furious movies massively grew the street racing scene in the United States, there was a similar phenomenon in Eastern Europe. Because Europe had its own car-centered action flicks, like The Transporter by Luc Besson, or the Tbilisi movie, or the in Germany pretty popular Alarm für Cobra 11. And all these forms of media got translated in a lot of different languages and became really popular across Eastern Europe and Georgia, creating, with the already explained circumstances, a perfect storm for a scene like this. And Giorgi Tevadze managed to become the key figure for this scene. And with showing the illegal street drifting lifestyle, Giorgi Tevadze and his friends managed to make a video that got 22 million views up to date. And that while car culture was changing from the movies onto YouTube. There was enormous potential here, and they were seeing it and had the production value to go for it. A second documentary about Giorgi Tevadze and illegal street drifting was being produced, alongside more review-styled videos of cars and other projects that showed that they wanted to go legal with this. However, we never got to see any of that, because 2 months after their viral hit, Giorgi Tevadze died. When listening to what's being said in Georgian and Russian, it's pretty clear that Giorgi Tevadze was dead on impact. He was sitting in the passenger seat of his infamous BMW M5 while a friend was driving, and they crashed with 140 km an hour into a tree. He was 26 years old, and because of his early death and the huge potential of his content, he became infamous across Eastern Europe, Georgia and Russia and the whole world. After his death, the world kept spinning, and his friend Eric Davidovich became one of the biggest car YouTubers of Russia, with over 4 million subscribers. The YouTube channel Tsarubin, which is most likely behind the production and editing work of the documentary that's the main source, is now also sitting at over 1 million subscribers. That fact serves as an indicator where Giorgi Tevadze's career could have headed. The echoing memory of Giorgi Tevadze can be felt across hundreds of comments and comment sections where people wish him rest in the afterlife. Also, his YouTube channel Need for Drive is active again since 2 years, where his friends continue posting car reviews and also completely rebuilt his BMW. The infamy that Giorgi Tevadze enjoys nowadays across the internet is a bit complicated, because obviously his driving put the lives of innocent people at risk, and at the end of the day, no one died except him. At the same time, reckless driving on social media as a trend is as prevalent as ever, and how immoral that is and how dangerous for other people's lives that is cannot even be put into words. However, it's important to judge people by the values of their time and place. People tend to become tolerant to dangerous actions and dangerous circumstances through instability, which most likely Giorgi Tevadze and the people that idealize him have experienced a lot of. The conscious living experience of someone living in that period has, at least in Georgia, included 4 armed conflicts, a complete system change, economic collapse, civil strife, and then a slow building of an economy and occasional authoritarianism. That of course doesn't excuse behavior like this. However, I think it puts into perspective how people could become indifferent to this kind of behavior and why Giorgi Tevadze on the internet since then in the majority of Eastern Europe gets treated a little bit like a folk hero and somewhat of a rebel. Also, there's an undeniable magic to the original documentary that introduced the majority of the internet to Giorgi Tevadze. For a 13-year-old 1080p YouTube video, it gives an insanely deep look into a parallel society, from the really strong connection to the Orthodox faith, to the problems of alcoholism in Georgia. It puts the camera on these topics and then instantly pulls it away again, leaving the viewer guessing. And all that to the backdrop of illegal street racing through the traffic of Tbilisi or drifting through the snowy mountains of Georgia. The constant switching between intense street racing and a melancholic atmosphere, also mixed with a constant switch between black and white and colored imagery, gives the movie a bit of a pressing, almost La Haine-like feel. And all that combined with really good visual storytelling, a really nice soundtrack including some insanely good West Coast hip-hop, and the thought in the back of your mind that Giorgi Tevadze was dead 2 months later. Definitely in the top 3 of YouTube videos I've seen in the last 15 years. Leave your opinion on the Drift King of Georgia down in the comments, and see you guys in the next video.